Welcome back to the MSU Deer Labs online seminar series. It is brought to you by the Mississippi State University Extension Service as well as the MSU Forest and Wildlife Research Center. I will be your presenter today. My name is Bronson Strickland, and I want to acknowledge my colleague and the co-director of the MSU Deer Lab, Steve Damaris. As the name implies, this presentation is all about cool season food plots. Want to review everything more or less that we've learned over the past 10 or 15 years. Want to go over the most common forages, their nutrient profiles, which plants work well, which ones work well in mixes, and which ones deer are attracted to. When we're finished with the presentation, my goal is that you are going to feel completely equipped to know what to plant on your property and why. By no means is this every possible thing you could write about or talk about with cool season food plots, but I think it's a really good collection, certainly for people starting out to get you going. If you remember earlier, I talked about the 4 Ps that my colleagues at the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks always use for forages that they recommend for food plots, and it's production, palatability, protein, and last was price. And so I want to do a quick evaluation here to show you some of our findings about how to get the most bang for the buck for different forages. So I'm going to start with the 3 cereal grains that we recommend: oats, rye, and wheat. And across the top, these are kind of the calculations that we conducted to get our answer. And this is PLS, pure live seed. You've heard me talk about that before. The planting rate, how much do you have to sow, how much actual seed is sown, the cost per acre, average yield, cost per yield, and then ultimately what we're looking for is how much does it cost me to get 1,000 pounds of a particular forage? How do we compare that? So with the cereal grains, everything is pretty much uniform in terms of you plant the same amount, you're going to get real similar yield. About the only thing that is variable with the cereal grains is just the price. And so with wheat being cheaper, we see that the cost per pound here, 25 cents for wheat versus 43 cents for oats and rye. And so we end up with a difference of, for every 1,000 pounds of wheat that you produce, costs you only $14. Versus over $20 for oats and rye. This is not a big deal. If you only have a few acres of food plot, no big deal at all. 14 bucks versus 21 bucks, not a big deal at all. But if you have a really large operation, those costs could be meaningful, meaning that you could allocate those dollars to maybe something else. Maybe it's more equipment. Maybe it's getting the field limed, but you know what I mean. You can redirect your money somewhere else. So for the cereal grains, no doubt about it, wheat is the cheapest to plant. Now we move at the bottom, we compared crimson, balansa, and berseem clover. We have a little bit different dynamic here because we have varying planting rate. So the PLS, this is going to depend on where you get your seed, but this is what you're going to have to get on the bag. We took the average from a lot of different places we bought seed, but we had the percent PLS went from 40 all the way to 51. So we account for that. We also then have the planting rate. For crimson, in this case, 25 pounds per acre. Balansa, only 8 pounds per acre. Berseem, 20. So then we can calculate how much seed, based on the PLS, how much did we have to sow? What is the cost per pound? So we see that crimson per pound is the cheapest. Berseem per pound is the most. So then we get a cost per acre, average yield, and then we get the cost per 1,000 pounds of yield. And so, believe it or not, even though crimson clover is the cheapest on a per pound basis, you have to sow more seed. And so when you look at it from that perspective, that getting 1,000 pounds of crimson clover forage is going to cost you over $40, compared to Balansa is only going to cost you around $22. And the big difference there, even though Balansa cost more than crimson, it all comes down to this: you're having to plant so much less of it. So a different way of looking at this, and I wanted to share this with you when you're at the seed store and you're evaluating, and if you're buying in bulk, 50 pounds at a time, and you might get sticker shock on some of these, but you got to remember, compare that to what is the pure live seed, and then how much am I going to have to plant. So look at that additional dynamic there, and it could save you some money. For more information, that's what people typically want. Where can I get more information? Well, here are a few additional resources for you that I think you'll find useful. First of all, I recommend both of these, and I'm very biased for one of them. Actually, I'm biased for both. They're really good. We produced the one on the left through the Mississippi State Extension Service, called the Supplemental Wildlife Food Planting Manual for the Southeast. A lot of deer forage information, but other wildlife as well. Things like dove fields and things like that. So another I spoke about earlier, Effective Food Plots for Whitetail Deer in Alabama by Chris Cook and Bill Gray. Both of these, if you just search those titles, they will pop up, and you can read them online or download a PDF, whatever way you like to consume information. A couple books that I recommend. I think both of these are some of the most comprehensive guides that you can find. Not just information about the forages like we've talked about, but other things as well, big picture, planting techniques, soils, etc. The book on the left, Wildlife Food Plots and Early Successional Plants, that is by Craig Harper. And so food plot information, but also a really good plant guide towards the end, that he has identified most all of the plants you are going to encounter, either as what you might think is a weed in a food plot, but also some really important deer food plants that you need to learn. And so a very good comprehensive guide. And also Quality Food Plots, developed by formerly the Quality Deer Management Association and now the National Deer Association, but very good guides that I highly recommend. We also generated a mobile app for your smartphone that contains much of the information that is in our publication, like species descriptions and planting rates, planting depths, all that kind of basic stuff. We did this again just so you could have most of that information with you in the field if you needed it. We also have a spatial tool in there where you can calculate area. I know sometimes it's really difficult for people to estimate area, and we can make a lot of errors and either get too much seed or not enough seed. So we have a little tool in there where you can actually go and trace the area of the plot you're working on, and calculate seeding rate relative to the size of the plot. And then also we have a way you can kind of generate reports and store them so you can remember what you planted last year and what you're going to plant this year and so forth. So a good little tool for your mobile phone. Of course, we have a website. If you go to the msudeerlab.com, our website, we have a section in there on food plots. And again, a lot of this is the same information. It's just how you like to read it, how you like to view it. But most of the information that's in our publications, you can also find that here about different species and their description, planting rates, etc. So another resource online on our website. And lastly, Maybe you don't want to read about deer food plots, but you want to listen to information about them. You can check out our podcast, Deer University. You can find our podcast anywhere that you find podcasts. We've got it there. And particularly episodes 6, 11, and 14, we deal with food plots. So if you're driving down the road, don't have time to read or don't want to read, you can tune into those as well to get some of this info.